Welcome back to the Million Dollar Landscaper podcast. Today, I'm very excited to bring on a very special guest. His name's Ezra McCarthy. He is from Texas, and he has a very unique story, and I'm excited to bring it to you today. Ezra started in the landscaping industry, and he has now developed a web design company. So welcome, Ezra. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. It's sure good to be here.
So Ezra, would you mind sharing with everybody, how you got started in the green industry? Because I think it's a very interesting story that you have, and then how it turned into a web design company.
Sure. It started back in 2021 when we moved to Greenville, Texas. We were pastoring then, and we still are now. And I needed a way to support my family with everything that was going on. And so I had started a business when I was in my previous pastorate doing painting. And I had used the lead services that just about everyone does. And I had spent a lot of money without getting any results. And I found my way to digital marketing and doing that. So when I started my lawn care company called Maple Leaf Mowing out of Greenville, Texas, from the very first, we designed a website. We had the Google business reviews we began to gather, and that just really pushed us along. And in 3 months, we were at the top of the Google Map Pack. And that's when we began to be able to choose our customers instead of some of those first ones. I remember on my website, I tell the story of literally, I didn't realize how often you need to sharpen your mower blades. So for the first 2 or 3 months, I didn't sharpen it. And if you can imagine how that went. And some of these jobs I was taking, I was taking just about everything, I need the work. And I went from 0 to 6,000 in 4 months. But one of those I took, it was like mowing the sides of this guy coming in a long driveway. And it was like he needed a baler, but it was too rough. And so I mowed it. But the problem is I had a T-post. And for those, it's just a long, metal thing that you stick in the ground for a fence. And I didn't know enough. I didn't even have a spare blade. So I had to go buy them, and then I had to sharpen the ones I had left. So you can imagine, I had a lot to learn, but I really enjoyed it. And I began to get better clients and avoid those as time went on.
We want to take a quick second to tell you about our friends over at Cycle CPA. I can't even express to you how important it is to have a good accountant on your side. You want accurate bookkeeping and financial statements every month. Instead, you're often left with limited time to focus on the accounting side of your business and no reports to show for it. At Cycle CPA, the landscaping accountants, they not only handle the bookkeeping, but also provide landscape industry benchmarking, job costing, financials by service line, advisory meetings, and much more. Cycle CPA has a team of landscaping accountants available to provide anything from bookkeeping to CFO services. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $100 off, mention the Million Dollar Landscaper podcast.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's always a rough thing when you take on customers and do jobs that you don't really want to do, but you need that money. And I think many of us have been there. I know I've been there. My dad, our business has been there as well. So it's always interesting. And I see this many times, and people in our programs, they start off at like doing a little bit of everything, and then they kind of niche down and fine tune what they want to do. So that's awesome. That's what you did as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Ezra, I'm excited to chat with you a little bit today about storytelling. And it's something that you and I talked about before, is how you have found storytelling has helped landscapers get more clients. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about that and how you've applied that to your business and to your web design firm.
Sure. I guess I'll back up even before lawn care and tell a true story about when I was younger. My brother was going to go, I think we did it a couple times. One time he went to the Dominican Republic on a missions trip. Another time he went on a high school program. And we would go and sell these chocolate bars or chocolate covered almonds for like $2, $3 a piece. And we go door to door. And at this time I was like 8 or 9 years old. And I remember one time I went up to this house, and my mom would drive with us. So she was right there. We were safe. But we would go, and for hours we would, sell these chocolates. So I remember knocking on the door. I'm just 8 or 9, and most kids, you can't help it. You're just a cute little kid. So I knock on the door. I sell the lady a couple chocolates, and I leave. And my sister says, "Hey, I was just at that house, and I already sold them chocolates." And I laugh. But, just going up, telling the story, "Hey, we're fundraising for my brother to go on this trip." And the story, were the chocolates worth it? They were good. I ate some, but it was really the story that sold the product. And as a landscaper owning Maple Leaf Mowing, when I go to people, sometimes I'd show up and I would take my 2-year-old at the time, my son, Liam, with me, and we'd pull up to a house and I'd get him out, and I had like a red uniform, red shirt, and then I usually wear just like khaki pants, and as clean as you can be for the most part, doing lawn care. And I'd show up and I go and talk to him. I'm telling a story when I get out of that truck in a uniform. I'm telling a story when I show up looking clean cut. I'm telling a story when I go and take my 2-year-old out of the back seat. And you know what? Conversely, when your competition pulls up in a raggedy truck, sleeveless shirt, cigar hanging out, cigarette probably hanging out of their mouth, they're also telling a story. Because when they think, okay, am I going to want this person in my backyard every week? They're not thinking, okay, is this guy $1 or $2 or even $10 more? Price goes out the window when you have a good story, and a true one, because if it's not, people are going to smell that and run.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think presentation is definitely very important. And I love how you say it is part of your story, which it really is. That's interesting. Never thought about it that way.
Because people don't buy products, they buy stories. It's maybe a story. They're either the story you're telling yourself.
Mm-hmm. Now, have some of your clients use this same principle through their web design stuff? And how do you go about doing that, expressing your story on a website?
Well, that's why I believe on every single website, you should have an Our Story page with even if you are a large company, someone who does this well is Corey Ballard with Perfect Cuts, but more so with the Ballard products. If you go on his website, he has a nicely embedded YouTube video with he and his wife telling about how they got started, about their products, etc. And it draws you in. In some parts, it has a few of his employees in there. And all these things build connection because, as the old saying goes, people want to know, like, and trust you. And I've been on several, like I've typed in literally best web designers in Boise or Dallas, large cities, London. And I go on there, I go throughout the whole website, and I can hardly figure out who I'm even working with, literally. And there's no connection. And it's like, okay, am I working with someone that really lives here? Is it someone in India? Which, not that I care, but I want to have some sort of trust. And as a lawn care company, you want them to be there to be a connection, because at that point, price is no longer an objection.
That's very true, and I think that's part of it. That, like you said, draws it in, especially if you see your 2-year-old with you. That's, oh, he's a family person, and it's very relatable. And I think that's the whole part of that. Isn't that correct with the storytelling?
Yeah, and it's building trust or whatever. Mm-hmm. As a landscaper, if you pull up and you may do the best work in the whole city, but if they don't feel that connection, if they don't feel that you do, it doesn't matter, because you're never going to have the opportunity to show that customer.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a customer talk to you about seeing that on your website to make you like, oh, that's smart that I've done that? Is that something that you found, or other landscapers?
So far, I've not necessarily heard that, but one thing combining with that, building social proof, is the reviews. A story about that, and I think we'll get into that later, is I literally had someone call, and this was right when I was moving. We moved at the end of May, and they said, hey, I have this problem. Can you come mow this? And I said, I tried at first just to refer them away. I didn't even say I was moving. I just said, hey, I'm busy. Here's another guy, Jose. Can I recommend J&M Landscaping and Lawn Care? And they said, hey, I really want to work with you. I said, hey, I'm really busy. I appreciate that. Can I refer you away? And I tried several times. Now, finally, I said, okay, why do you want to work with us? They said, hey, we've read your reviews and we want to work with you. So I think that, combined with the power of online reviews, is what makes a difference. Until it's not, you're calling up people trying to beg to work with them. Over time, you're going to be able to pick and choose your clientele. So you're not like I was in the first couple of months, taking those properties that really need a baler instead of a lawnmower.
Yeah, I agree. The reviews is a huge thing, and I think you have a very interesting story, which you touched on a little bit earlier, of how you started getting more reviews and able to do that. You mind sharing, how you found that the reviews helped you, and how to go about getting reviews and everything?
Yeah. So I found the power of reviews. It started in my painting company, and there where I was, there was a lot of high quality painting, premium painting, and that's how I tried to bill myself. Because I realized, okay, I don't have time to be chasing everything, so I priced myself accordingly, and then I served them well. And when I realized I scored, it was like a $25,000 painting contract, and I made over $12,000 in 12 days there was two of us for the most of it. I think over $1,000 a day profit on that. And basically,
Nice.
I don't even know that they got a second quote. Maybe they did, but I have a feeling they didn't. And when after that, I realized, okay, wow, this is working. And because I saw that, just even one or two, the more reviews I got, the more leads I got, the better quality leads I got, and the less selling that I had to do. So when we moved and I started my lawn care company, literally before you ever start a lawn care business, there's two things that you need. Not a lawnmower, not even a weed eater. You need a Google business profile and you need a website. And then you need to start gathering reviews like your business depends on it. Because here's a secret. It does. Literally, those 0 to 6, and let me back up. It wasn't $6,000. It was 5,000, around 5,975. So it's 20 some short. But almost in 4 months, I went from 0 to $6,000 a month, just through the power of reviews. And I sent you a text of a young man named Jose. And if you type in lawn care Greenville, Texas, and we did this the other day, Scott and I, and the first one that's going to come up is probably his now, because I haven't been there in 6 months and I haven't been getting any reviews. But his business, I just texted him last night for an update. When I met him, I think it was in January, February, when I was looking to move. He had, I think, 4 Google reviews, and I don't know, maybe had 20 or 30 customers. He was just doing it with, it wasn't his father. I think it was a friend. And I'd have to double check with him, but he had a nice small business, but I just texted him for an update. And let me look real quick to get the exact wording. I think he said it was $175,000 this year, 70 this year so far he got. And a lot of that some of that he's worked very, very hard, but the power of reviews was what really propelled him to begin to get those larger landscape jobs and also the customers.
One thing I like to throw in here, Ezra, is I'd love for you to share, how old is this person, or and what grade is he in? Because he's in high school, correct?
Yeah. Jose is in a junior in high school, and I believe he's 17.
Yeah, that's, to me, that's amazing. That just shows like this kid who's just getting started is able to propel his business to $170,000 per year by using Google reviews. That's freaking amazing. So for everybody out there listening that's been doing this for a while, why aren't you doing this? If a high schooler can do this, why can't you do
it? And that's one of the first things that we need to recognize is, how could I achieve this? You need to first recognize the value, because if you don't recognize the value in them, you're not going to work hard, because it does take work to begin to gather those, and especially lots. And it does take time. Mm-hmm. So first, recognize value, and 2, begin to put systems in place to gather them. And in my opinion, it's best in person. And if you say, hey, I know I'm not going to ask people, that's understandable. So, okay, what can we automate? What can we begin to try to gather them? And if nothing else, I literally recommend people put a reminder on your phone every day, have it come up at 9, 10 in the morning, send out 1 review request a day. Now, if they don't leave it, that's okay. But or if you say, man, I'm not going to do that, once a week, something, because literally that's like piling this table high with cash and lighting it on fire, because that's what you're doing if you're not using this great tool.
Mm-hmm. Now, Ezra, I just want to be clear. You're talking about getting people to do the reviews on Google Business Profile. Is that correct?
That is the best, but there are also other platforms you can as well. Facebook
Okay.
reviews, I don't think are as valuable, but they are, and there's a couple others. But yes, predominantly Google reviews are the most valuable, and one of the reasons is that is one of the main factors that affects your Google Business Profile ranking, which that affects where you place on maps, and it will also conversely affect your website ranking.
Mm-hmm. So just this popped in my head. Years ago, I was in a accountability group for landscapers, and one of the members that was in there, and can't remember his name now. Anyhow, when he would go out to do initial estimate for somebody, and this guy was mainly a tree company. One of the first things he would ask the person is, and he would let the person know up front before he would even start the job, before he bid the job, he would say, I ask all my customers to do two things for me. When, we finish the job, everything looks great, you're happy with everything. I ask that you give us a review, and I ask for a recommendation to anybody else that you know that could use our services. So that's how he started the conversation with all his potential customers. I think that was kind of smart because he's leading up to like asking the person for a review, as long as they're happy and everything at the end. I think that was kind of a smart way. And this was, I don't know, this is probably 10, 15 years ago before when I was in this accountability group. And I think it was smart back then. And now really looking back at it, and it's just kind of triggered my memory with this. I think it is smart. And these Google reviews are just so vital. And I think it's underutilized in the landscape industry.
Oh, it is. And that's why I got into it. I remember I listened to a podcast about marketing, and they were talking about the market is saturated for marketers. And I disagree. Like, there is so many people that just don't know this simple stuff that I'm talking about. An example is literally just like you were talking about. I wouldn't tell them, but I would go into every job thinking, how can I serve them? And so when this job is done, when I ask for that review, that there are just tickled pink to give it. I'll give you an example. I was doing a painting job for a older lady, and I saw another business do this called a Wow One Day Painting, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try this. And so I finished the job. The job looked good. I went out and I bought flowers for this lady, and she was an older lady, and also a card. And I just wrote in there, hey, I forget her name. Thanks, so and so. We sure appreciated working for you. If you ever need anything, let me know. And I left those flowers in a vase. It cost me, I don't know, 20, 30 bucks. I mean, the job was a couple grand, and that's nothing. So I left it there. And you know what? If that lady ever needs painting again, is she going to go and say, you know what? I wonder who's the cheapest around? Is she going to say, you know what? I wonder who can I get quickest? No, she's going to say, man. And she sent me this text. She was so thrilled. It was just one way that just, I was just being kind, and to a lady that meant a lot. And so just if she ever needs it, she's not going to look for anyone else.
I think that's very smart and very wise of you to do that. And the gifts go a long way. And I think one thing I always tell people too is to do handwritten thank you cards. And I've heard people doing that different ways. I didn't do it, but I've heard people say they do a handwritten thank you note. But on the backside, they would have a QR code that they can direct them to for their Google review. I thought that was kind of smart too. That, hey, if you get mine, take a picture. You can, use that QR code in the back of the thank you letter. Leave us a review. It, really appreciate it. I think that's to me, it was a pretty interesting strategy. Do you have any other ideas or any other strategies that you recommend landscapers do to collect these reviews?
100%. There needs to be, you need to reduce friction at every single possible point. So I recommend, if it's a landscaping as far as like flower beds, if you're doing pavers, any of those things, normally at the end of jobs like that, you would do a walkthrough, or at least I would with the customer and say, or is everything like you thought? And is there anything we missed that we can take care of before we leave? And they're normally, oh, thank you so much. This is great. And then I'd say, oh, Mrs. Smith, it was great working for you. Then I have 3 questions I asked them. I say, and I'll just ask you them, Scott, do you shop on Amazon?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, if there's no reviews, do you buy it?
Probably not, no.
And I would ask Mrs. Smith those 2 questions, and most everyone says, yes, I shop on Amazon, and most everyone says, no, I don't buy it if there's no reviews. And then I say, hey, can I send you a link right now? And you just have to click it. It takes 5 seconds, and can leave a quick review, and this helps future people just like you find us. And most everyone understands the Amazon thing, because you don't want to be the guinea pig and get, I heard about, during COVID when those paper towel and toilet paper was bad, I heard about this person who spent a couple $100 on these paper towels, and they were a joke. They were super small and just awful. And no one wants to be that person that overpays for junk. And so they understand that. And then you can get from Google Business Profile a link that you can text or email. And then you can do that right then. Strike while the iron is hot, and they're way more likely to fill it out.
That's genius right there. That's awesome. Yeah. And to me, the link to, like we mentioned earlier, that link was in that example that I told you about, the thank you cards. For the listeners out there, that link is what was set up for that QR code. So that when people would take a picture with that QR code, that link would pop up and it would take them right to the Google reviews. And again, to me, I think that goes along the lines of what you're saying, Ezra, is the making it as simple as possible, as easy as possible for those people to leave those reviews. And I think but I love your idea there about the Amazon. I never thought about that way. That's smart.
And the thing
Do you have any other ideas? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the thing you have to remember is people are busy and they don't care about your business as much as you do. And so that's why you reduce friction, make it as easy as possible. Another way that can help is follow up. So along the same lines, there is times that I've asked people, hey, would you fill it out? They say, oh yeah, I'll get it on. And people are busy, they forget. And if I see, okay, in a week or two, they haven't, I'll just say, hey, I just checking. Have you had a chance to leave that review yet? And if they say no, I'll say, oh, no problem. Let me send you another link here quick. You say, this sounds like a lot of work, but these are gold. And I've had people fill it out, and sometimes they'll say, oh, I left one. And if that's the case, then I leave it, because there's times customers will leave a review and it won't post. There's nothing you or they can do about it. It's just Google's policy. If they don't think it's genuine or for whatever reason, they'll flag it, and you just can't do anything. It's just price of the good doing business. So, and there's other platforms that you can use to automate that. There's one called, I think, Nice Job. Now you're going to pay $70, $90 a month for that, but that is something that can be used. One thing I would note, if you use a platform like that, don't collect reviews on their platform, in my opinion, because part of the benefit of Google reviews is people trust Google. They do. And one note on that, I think on every page of your website, you should have reviews, but please never, ever, ever, ever type out your reviews. And the reason why is you and I, hopefully, well, I'm going to, and I hope everyone listening is honest enough to never type out an untrue review. But your customers who come to your website, they don't have that trust built in yet. And so if you just type out a review, they don't know if on your lunch break, you just typed out 10. But if you can link to Google and have that Google emblem, they can click through. So they say, okay, this is a real link. This isn't someone being deceitful. Then that just builds trust, because people do, for the most part, we may not agree with every policy Google has, but you trust the product because that's why you're using it. And so if you can, in some ways, piggyback off that trust, that can help build social credibility.
So Ezra, too, along the lines of the reviews, do you recommend that if somebody leaves a review, you go in and acknowledge that on these different platforms and tell them thank you? Or if there's a bad review, do you recommend replying to those?
Yes, on both. You always want to reply, to everyone as quickly as possible. Because not only does that show the customers, hey, this person's paying attention, but it also shows Google, hey, this person is engaged on this profile. And second, on the negative reviews, that is not something, obviously, if you made a mistake, you should acknowledge that and say, hey, we're sorry. Never, ever attack your customer. And the reason why is when I look at reviews, I always look, first of all, at the number. If there's 2, it was probably their grandma and them or their brother. But if there's 50, if there's a pattern of negative ones, then I say, okay, you know what? This isn't a fluke. This isn't this angry customer or the neighbor that 2 grass clippings got on their car. You know what I'm saying? But respond. If you were wrong, take the blame. Try to fix it, obviously, and just say, you know what? This isn't our normal procedure. keep it cordial, short, but I would respond. And when people look at that, they say, you know what? Maybe they did make a mistake. They're not harassing them and they're moving on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's very smart. You have to get back to the customers right away, and you are going to have bad reviews or somebody does something silly like you said, and I think it's just part of the business. And I think to me, even if you get like 3-star or 4-star, to me it's a little more honest review. If you see all 5 stars, to me as as just a consumer, I start to question that. Is that something that you find as well?
Yeah, that's why those, even a negative review sprinkled in every now and then, like you said, does build trust. Now, if you have all 5 stars, I wouldn't sweat over it and say, oh, I need to get a negative one. I would not sweat there, but it's just part of the game. And people realize you can't please everyone.
So Ezra, I know we were talking about the Google Business Profile earlier and how it incorporates the Google reviews. Do you find it's very important for landscapers to fill out the Google Business Profile and get it all completed all the way through? Is that important for the Google rankings?
It's important for Google rankings and also to be found. I actually told you an example about someone in Adrian, Michigan, who was literally 5 to 10 minutes outside of town. And when I literally typed his business name into Google and the town where he serviced, he could not be found. And so I realized that his service area did not encompass that. And so once we got that started, then we were finally able to get him to be found, not just literally typing it in this small little local town right by his service area.
Yeah. One thing I think many people don't realize, it's very simple to really set it up. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there's usually like a little diagram up there that shows you like how far you've completed setting up everything. Is there anything else that you recommend in the Google Business Profile that they set up?
Yes, I recommend that you post at minimum to start with 6 to 10 pictures and then be posting at least one a month. And then also in the update feature, you need to be at minimum once a month, keeping that fresh with a picture and an offer. And then something that's often overlooked is the product section. Now, as a service business, we are not selling a product technically, but our service is a product. So I recommend putting in, if you do lawn care, if you do landscaping, and then include in that description the keywords that you're trying to rank for. And all of these things are just brick by brick adding value to help you be found more.
Yeah, I think that's smart. One thing I was reading about and it said to incorporate like FAQs. Is that something that you found out or found through your experience as well, adding those type of things?
That would just be the added 1%. That hasn't seemed to be a big, I guess, mover. One of the largest things that we've kind of ad nauseum kind of went over, but is the reviews, and I'll just touch back on that as well.
Okay, sure. Now I know too, you and I were when we were chatting before that said that if a person doesn't have a website, that Google does have their own website builder in there. Is that something that you'd recommend if somebody doesn't have any website, they don't have the funds to kind of get started? Is that something that you recommend?
Yes, that is something that takes just a few minutes to set up, and it's definitely worthwhile. And that is not something that we kind of do as much anymore. But for the very small business, it's just one page, very simple, but it uses that Google profile and just kind of cannibalizes it to make a one-page website. So if you just started, that's a great website. If you're offering different services, I don't think I'd recommend that. It's hard to tell a story through that and also showcase your different services. But if you're just starting, it's just a no-brainer. You need to have something.
Mm-hmm. Do you recommend, even if you have a website, to have that one filled out as well, or no? Is it not that important?
Well, it's attached to a domain and its only value is a website. So it's really only one or the other. So
okay.
You can't really have both at the same time, if that makes sense. But if you don't have a website, then you need to get that set up. And domains, which is basically what your website is called, they're very cheap. If you've never done it before, it costs anywhere from $12 to $20 a year, unless you're trying to get a fancy name, which I don't recommend it. Some people get caught up in, oh, what's my business name going to be called? And I was actually just telling my brother the other day, he's like, what does green frog and that's my business name, Green Frog Web Design, has to do with web design. And I said, well, what does an apple have to do with computers? Nothing. It's what they did after they chose the name. Now, obviously, if you're a lawn care company, you don't want to call yourself Top Notch Roofing. That doesn't make sense. There is some, natural pathways that you should follow. But in all reality, branding is what you do after you pick your name, not always before.
Yeah, that's smart. I never thought about it that way with Apple. Yeah, does it have anything to do with computers or phones or anything like that?
No.
The other thing I know we were chatting about earlier was helping you stand out from other businesses, and you referred to this in our last conversation as the purple cow effect. And you mind elaborating about that and let everybody out there know what the purple cow is?
The Purple Cow was a book written by Seth Godin. I believe it was released in 2003. And the basic premise of the book is he and his family were over driving in Europe, and they were looking out the window and they saw these beautiful green hills with cows spotted them, and they just were oohing and awing and enjoying it, as of course as we all would. When in half an hour he noticed that the cows were still there, the hills were still green, it was still beautiful, but no one was noticing. And at that moment, he realized, you know what? What if when they were driving along, all of a sudden they saw a purple cow? Not only would his family stop and take notice, but they would tell others. And as a business, people are used to, well, maybe not in the lawn care industry as much, but reliability, getting things that are decent. And so as a business, we're going to have to do something to stand out. Now, in the lawn care industry, it's a little bit easier because our competition, unfortunately, that's a low bar. But there's things that we can do to stand out as a business. And one of the things that I recommend is having a uniform, even if it is simple as just going and someone that did a good job of this is Yellow Hat Mowers out of Syracuse, New York. And he'll just wear like a yellow shirt every day. It's just something simple and a yellow hat, obviously, but something simple as to branding, building brand recognition. Now we would have at Maple Leaf Mowing a red shirt and khaki pants predominantly. And then we would always, we had something called a metal business card, and it's literally metal. And I showed you an example, Scott, and it is kind of the size of a credit card, but when you pick it up, it feels heavier. So as soon as you pick it up, you notice the difference. And literally, I had one lady that looked at it and she says, what do I do with this? Do I scan it? Like, she just was just flabbergasted. What is this? And most business cards, you give it to someone, they kind of crumple it in their pocket, and then when they go inside, they throw it out. I was just talking to another podcaster the other day, and he was like, oh man, it's been months ago. I took him out for lunch there in Dallas, Andrew Martinez, and he's like, yeah, I still got that, and I know right where it is in my house. It just so, got his attention that he didn't get rid of it. And that's all part of just being different as a business in a positive way, so that not only people are going to remember you, but are going to want to tell their friends about it.
Yeah, and I just see, and even like our Facebook groups, people find it hard to express that value and to come across different. I think these are some genius ideas on how to stand out. Just the uniforms, that to me, that's a huge one. Like you said earlier, you have a fly-by-night company that comes pulling up, and like you said, the cigarettes hanging out, the dashboard's full of garbage and paperwork or whatever, and it just looks like a mess. And to me, that's a huge way to stand out.
And you don't need the fanciest truck. You don't necessarily need a huge decal trailer. To be honest, on mine, that was one of the things that I was going to do before I moved. But I purposely didn't put phone numbers on my truck. I purposely didn't do that because I wanted people to find me online. And the reason why was I wanted them to see my reviews. I wanted them to see my website. I wanted them to build connection so that I wasn't trying to sell. I was just, the people that came, they were pre-sold. And that's one things that online marketing can do for you is pre-sell the customer before they ever get there. I think of a website like a filter. The tire kickers are going to come in the top. They're going to say, wow, you know what? This guy is probably not going to be the cheapest guy around. When people would call, I would literally tell them, you know what? I'm probably not the cheapest guy around. If that's what you're looking for, then we're probably not going to be the right fit. And that was okay with me if some people said, you know what? That's not for me. Because if that was what they're looking for, I wasn't. But the people that wanted that would not have stuck around. But the people who say, you know what, I'd rather pay a little bit more for quality for someone I can call to that's going to speak in English, that's going to, or it's fine if they can speak something else, but I can talk to them. They're going to be kind. They're going to show up. I'm not going to be worried about them stealing something from my backyard. All of these things matter and help to build a great business.
Yeah, that's smart. Do you have any other ideas or anything that you can see or from your experience that other landscapers can use to express that value and to express the quality of work that they do and stand out and be the purple cow?
One thing that I've recently been getting into is email marketing. And you may say, okay, as a lawn care company, why does that matter? Well, what if you had 500 customers, and that's possible on your email list? Because obviously there is churn, that's normal. And instead of spamming them with every week or hopefully not every day, don't do that. But you're sending them something of value. Like every week, what if you sent them a local business that you are highlighting? What if you sent them the local weather, the local sports team, perhaps, I don't know, whatever, in your local town, the high school is going on. You're adding value to them. And if you sent that once a week, 5,000, now let me get my calculator, I'm about to tell you wrong. Okay, if you had 500 subscribers and you sent them 52 weeks a year, that's a gross list of touch points, 26,000 touch points. Now, even if you had a half open rate, that's 13,000 touch points a year. And then maybe once a month, if you just sent them an update, hey, this is the service that's going to help you this coming month, this season, whether it's leaf cleaning, it's fall aeration, if you're up north, snow removal, and you're building trust with all these people. This is another way. It is time consuming. It does cost a little bit, not the subscription, but either you're taking the time or hiring somebody. But I recently heard that it takes 27 touch points to sell to somebody. And I could see that. There's companies I've seen many times before I ever bought. But what if your landscape company had 13,000 touch points this year? How could that help your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even go along with the touch points is like you said, you have red shirts. To me, that stands out a little bit different than some other, but just in a ratty tatted shirt that's torn or whatever. When you see that red shirt, like, oh, I know that company. That's Maple Leaf, and that to me, that's part of the branding that we talked about earlier, and this online or the presence, I guess. So I think that's smart. Anything else that you can think of that landscapers can use?
Those are kind of the main points. Off the top of my head here, I wrote down some of the other questions, but didn't have as many for that.
That's right.
Obviously, having a good website. Answer your phone. That's a good one. Whether you have to pay someone else to do it or you do it. I told you about, I recently tried to get a photographer. I called 10. Most of them didn't get back with me, one or two. And it was so frustrating because I'm like, okay, is it that hard to ask for? I want to pay you. Like, you're obviously not doing a good job with your business.
Yeah. No, those are key ones. The answering the phone is huge, and I see that over and over again. We just did a podcast on this, and at our fire station, I had to call and get some epoxy floors done. So we wanted to get an epoxy floor done in a room. I called three different I called more than three different companies. Only three people responded to me, I should say, and it's just amazing. And it's not just the lawn care industry; it's contractors are all around the world that just don't get back to you, and it's so important. One thing I wanted to kind of talk about now, you have your green web or green frog web design. I'd love for you to share a little bit, about your business and what you guys do a little bit different than other companies out there.
Yeah, so we have a no-brainer offer. I remember when I had my painting company, I was looking around for a web designer and I was just so frustrated. Well, problem there too is they wouldn't get back with me, and that was frustrating. And then when they did, they wanted to charge thousands of dollars before I saw any results. And that's okay, but I was like, okay, I don't trust these people. And then they wanted to charge thousands of dollars after that, or hundreds, pardon me, per month. And they couldn't explain to me what kind of value they were going to give. And so we've charged for the first month $1. $1. And then we guarantee to have your website done in 3 weeks or less, or it's free for a year after you get those photos back to us. So literally, you're going to see your website completed for $1. You can't go buy
Nice.
hardly a stick of gum for $1, but you're going to get a professionally designed website for $1. And you say, okay, how can you do that? Well, we're fronting the cost really on our end. We're spending hours getting that design, talking on the phone with you, getting those photos uploaded, etc. Because our whole business model is based on your long-term success. I talked to someone the other day. He's paying $1,400 a month. And if he wants a new page designed, they're going to charge him $1,000 more a month. And he's locked in a contract. He doesn't even want to keep working with them. So our model is you can cancel anytime. I had some the other day. Their business was struggling going into fall. They canceled after the first month. So it actually cost me money to design that. And he asked me, "What do I owe you?" I said, "Nothing." Now, obviously, I can't do that continually, but now I would if people signed up and did that. I would honor that. But our business model is based on your long-term success. So we don't lock you into any crazy contracts and then say, well, you're toast. Just keep paying us. We make money by helping you over the long term.
Nice. Nice. I know you have three different types of plans in your web design company. You mind sharing a little bit about those and what they are?
Yeah, so we have the pro plan. So this is for kind of the newer business, 1 to 4 pages, and that's $1 for the first month, and then $1.99 after that. And what you're going to get included in that is free domain name, free hosting, and you would say, okay, what is hosting? So I illustrated it to like a bookshelf. So if you go to the bookshelf, the domain name is the title of the book, but then you're going to need somewhere for the book to rest. And so that hosting is where your website is going to rest until someone comes and picks it off the bookshelf or types in that or finds it on Google and they pull it off the bookshelf per se. And so it has to have somewhere, no matter if you do it or if someone else does hosting, you just have to do it. So what's included in that is free unlimited updates. So if you say, hey, this picture changed, we're no longer offering this service, can we update this? All of those things are included at no extra cost. Then your domain name, your hosting, and then the boost plan, that's 4 to 6 pages, and some of the offerings have just changed here recently, but your pages can increase, and then also your added bonuses. And then we have the platinum plan, which includes more pages as well. It also includes the Google Workspaces, one free Google Workspaces, and then there's several other things. And so it's just kind of increasing value. And our goal is to continually be adding value. And so what you're getting is more in value than what you're paying.
Sounds like a great deal. I love that you have unlimited updates and stuff because I think that's huge. And like you mentioned, some of these other companies out there are charging for all this stuff. So that's an amazing deal. Thank you for doing that for everybody in the industry.
And that's kind of my goal. I recognize the frustration of it. And as I looked around, it didn't seem like there was anyone that was really doing a good job. And so we're trying to fill that gap.
Mm-hmm. I think that's huge. So Ezra, for those that are interested in learning a bit more about yourself or learning about getting some web design done, how can everybody find out about you?
Sure. The best place to go is greenfrogwebdesign.com. And if you're like me and don't like spelling, you can just type in I love myfrog.com and that'll take you right there.
Nice. I like that. See, that's a unique thing. That's that purple cow.
That's the goal.
So Ezra, no, thank you very much for being on the show today. Is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with and something that they need to do or that you recommend to kind of get going on?
Sure. Send out today at least one request for a Google review. And if you don't have that, ask someone on another platform to leave a review and tell someone thank you today.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Ezra, thank you very much for being on the show. It's great to have you here, and I look forward to working with you and talking to you in the future about this because I think it's something that's needed in this industry, I should say. I see so many people say I don't need a website, and I totally disagree with that. I think that, like Ezra here has the right mindset and the right thoughts on getting it set up, and I love your process here. So Ezra, thank you very much for everything you do for the industry, and thank you for providing these great services to everybody.
Oh, thanks, Scott. It was great to get to know you and to help talk to your audience today.
Yeah. All right, Ezra. Well, thank you again, and hope you have a great day. Thanks, everyone.